Hey everybody, welcome to the RedZone. This is Shaun, I'm Mike, and it's week 7 for college football. It's flying by. Last week, I was 11-10 with my picks. Shaun was 9-12. It was probably the worst week we've had since we've started this.
That's the first time I've ever been under 500.
It was amazing.
Since we started last year.
There were just so many surprises and teams that didn't cover. Who would have thought Miami would struggle with Florida State? I mean, it was just
well, and like we said last
crazy.
week, there weren't any really good matchups. I mean, there weren't very many just crazy big games like there are this week. It seems like every other game is a top 15 matchup, you know.
Yeah, and then next week we go back to where there's hardly any good matchups. But anyway, so that's how we did last week. It wasn't very good. That was the first time you've been under 500.
Yeah.
I squeaked out above 500 just barely. So we got to do better this week.
Well,
I think we will.
Just to remind everybody, we do this for fun. Nobody pays us to do it. I know we've said that time and time again. There are a couple people that commented saying, don't use these if you go bet. I would even say, like, don't take my opinion. It's just an opinion. I mean, we do research on these games. We don't use computer algorithms. Yep. I think I've said computer algorithms at least 10 times while we've been shooting
and
this
there's
show.
a disclaimer at the beginning of the video, so read it, you know. So you gamble at your own risk. So.
But we appreciate
we appreciate you watching and commenting for sure. So let's take a look at the current top 25 that came out. There was a lot of changes, some shakeups with the teams that lost. The 5th, 7th, and 8th ranked team all lost. So let's take a look at those right now. You have Alabama at 1, Georgia 2, Ohio State now at 3, Clemson 4, Notre Dame jumps up to 5, West Virginia is at 6, Washington, Penn State. For some reason, Texas jumps from 19 to 9. I think that's
a big
ridiculous.
Jump.
I mean, I get them jumping up, but that was kind of crazy. UCF at 10, OU drops to 11. That's not too bad of a drop for having a loss.
I thought they would drop even more. See, I would agree more with dropping OU more and maybe putting Texas right on the outskirts because they still lost to Maryland. Let's be honest.
I thought they would have been like 11. Is where I thought.
Yeah, and then maybe OU's 13th
12,
or something
12
like.
Or 13.
Yeah. I was surprised. I thought the OU would drop a lot more than that. Texas, we're starting to find out is pretty good, but we'll talk about that during their pick.
Let's finish through the rest of these. Let's take a look at the rest of them. So we had OU at 11, Michigan at 12. LSU drops from 5 to 13 after their loss to Florida, which was an incredible game. Florida at 14, which is kind of weird that Florida would be below LSU despite beating them. Wisconsin at 15, Miami there at 16, Oregon 17, Kentucky after their first loss drops to 18. Colorado, NC State in there at 20. Auburn 21, Texas A&M 22, South Florida, Mississippi State stays in the top 20, 25. And Cincinnati, my Bearcats, they make it in the top 25. They are still undefeated, one of, I think, 11 schools that are still undefeated. So that is your current AP top 25. And let's just get right into the picks for week 7. So we have spreads for every game. So as you've noticed, if you're watching this, the video is up a little later than usual because we couldn't shoot on Sunday. We're shooting on Monday instead. So here we go. We're going to start with the first game. Texas Tech at TCU. TCU is an 8.5-point favorite, and this game is on a Thursday night. What do you think?
Yeah, I've got Texas Tech covering in this. I think TCU doesn't really have like a good marquee win. They did get beat by Texas pretty early. And Tech beat Oklahoma State, who is looking to be kind of more of an average team.
And they held Oklahoma State to 17 points,
which was true.
Impressive.
Texas Tech just got a really high-powered offense. And Alan Bowman's been throwing. He's got 1,680 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. They don't turn the ball over that much. But Sean Robinson has thrown for 1,023 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions.
He just has a tendency to turn the ball over when in key situations.
I think he's a redshirt freshman, maybe.
I think so, yeah.
Making redshirt freshman mistakes. Maybe a sophomore. I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, I think Tech's high-powered offense is enough to cover that.
So you're taking Tech in the points?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do the same. I'm not necessarily, TCU might win the game. I really think Texas Tech's going to win the game, but I certainly don't think TCU can cover 8.5.
Yeah.
I mean, not with that Texas Tech offense. There's no way. So I'll take Texas Tech in the points. Arizona at Utah. Utah, a 14-point favorite, pulled off a surprise win this past weekend. when nobody thought. Well, we didn't think they would.
Yeah.
So
went straight into Stanford.
And beat Stanford. I mean, after the way Stanford played with Notre Dame,
they killed Stanford.
Yeah, they did. So this week they're a 14-point favorite. It's a Friday night game against Arizona. It is home for them. I'm on the fence because Utah's kind of like here, there, but you never know about Arizona either. Who's going to show up?
Yeah.
I think for this pick, 14 points might be a lot. Yeah, it might be a lot. But I'm going to go ahead and take Utah to cover. I don't feel good about it, but I'm going to take them to cover because Arizona is just not very good.
Yeah. Arizona's putting up 30 points a game. Utah's defense is holding opponents to 17 points a game. And they're only scoring 25 points a game. It's a tough one. This might be the toughest one of the week just because of how sporadic Utah has been. I mean, they lost to Washington State. They lost to Washington.
They get one less day of practice because it's a Friday night game.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold with my pick. I'm not going to change my pick. I want to flip this, but I'm not going to.
I'll flip it for you. How about that? I'll
You'll
take Arizona in the points. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to Iowa as a 5-point favorite at Indiana. Indiana, surprisingly, kept it very close with Ohio State, kept it, very respectable. I mean, I don't think a lot of Buckeye fans expected that, although I kind of expect a little bit of a letdown after the Penn State win. I mean, you always kind of get that, especially a team when you think you're just going to go roll. But Indiana hung with them. Indiana's stuck in there with a lot of games, but Iowa, to me, I think Iowa's a really good team.
Yeah.
I think they have a really good defense.
Their defense is really, really good.
And so 5 points, I'm going to take Iowa to cover that.
Same here.
Okay. Minnesota.
Indiana's better. Sorry, Indiana's better than what they have been in the last few years, but Iowa's defense they played Iowa State. Don't know if they've had very many big games to put on their resume, but
You're taking Iowa to cover.
Yeah.
Okay. Minnesota at Ohio State. Ohio State 29.5-point favorite. Ohio State has not covered the last couple weeks. Their defense is having some issues. They're not bad. I'm not saying they're a bad defense, but there's some holes in that defense that they have really got to close up. Mm-hmm. The thing with this game, 29.5 points is a lot, but Minnesota's two best players are out, and they're starting a true freshman walk-on at quarterback. I think Minnesota is going to struggle, especially considering it's at Ohio State.
At Ohio State.
So initially, before I found out about the guys being out and everything, I had Minnesota in the points, but I am now changing that. I'm going to take Ohio State to cover.
Yeah.
I've taken them to cover the last 2 weeks, and they have not done it. I hope third time's a charm. We'll see. If they don't, I may not take them the rest of the way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The only thing with the true freshman quarterbacks, the only thing is if they are any somewhat formidable.
There's no tape.
There's no tape.
Right.
OU constantly plays, backup quarterbacks always. And we saw with Mike Stoops being fired, if you haven't heard or seen, all over Twitter, all over Facebook, at least here in Oklahoma, Mike Stoops was let go yesterday after churning out a record-setting day for Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Never has Texas scored 48 points. So anyway, backup quarterback, don't really know. Don't know much about him. But, I mean, Maryland even beat Minnesota 42-13. Iowa beat Minnesota 48-31. So if your defense just comes in and has just kind of a good day, I think that they can cover this spread. 30 points. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 40.
Okay, so you got them covering too.
Yeah.
Okay. Florida 7.5-point favorite at Vanderbilt. Florida got their win over LSU. It's one I got wrong. I'm a Joe Burrow fan.
Yeah.
He had his first turnover. He fumbled and he threw an interception, a pick six actually. But man, he was getting blindsided from the backside. They were not picking up blocks. The offensive line struggled. His wide receivers were just dropping balls because they could have won that game if his receivers just catch the football. It hit him right in the hands. So it's unfortunate that they lost that game. It was very close right to the end though. So that being said, that's 2 weeks in a row that Florida's had a tight game because they had a 13-6 game against Mississippi State.
Yeah.
With Vanderbilt, playing at Vanderbilt, 7.5. Florida's kind of they're playing there where they're winning by a touchdown.
Yeah.
They're not covering a 7.5 the last 2 weeks. Vanderbilt's not bad. And this is one of those deals where when you play an in-conference team, they know you because they play you every year.
Yeah.
And I know it's Dan Mullen's first year, and there might be some differences, but they've seen him when he was at Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
So I am taking Vanderbilt and the points. Florida wins the game, but I don't think they cover 7.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. Vanderbilt went into Notre Dame and hung with Notre Dame, gave them some trouble. And nothing against you Gator fans, because
that was before they switched from Wimbush to Book. Let's be honest about that, because since Ian Book came in, Notre Dame has just went lights out.
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Man,
did I change your mind a little
Kinda.
bit? Jog you a little bit with that one?
I don't know. I'm gonna stick with Vanderbilt and the points, because playing so close, and Vanderbilt's a decent team. They're not bad.
Yeah.
But
I will say Florida's front four on defenses, they're pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Though. They were really good.
Actually, flip that. I'll flip it. I'll go get you. I'll go get you on this one.
All right.
I'll take Florida in the points.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Nebraska at Northwestern.
Just so those Gator fans kind of get off of us.
Nebraska at Northwestern. Northwestern is a 6.5-point favorite. They came out last week. Was it Michigan State they beat? I mean, didn't just beat. They put it to them. And that is after losing Jeremy Larkin for the season. That was pretty impressive on Northwestern's part to go in there and win that game. 6.5-point favorite. Nebraska, sorry. I like Nebraska, I like the program. I really hope they get back on track and are in the top. Scott Frost gets them competing for Big Ten championships soon. But this year, I'm sorry, the cupboard's bare and dry, and there's just not much there as far as talent. And so they need to focus on recruiting. And as far as this one goes, 6.5, I think, is a low number for Northwestern. It should be closer to 12.
Yeah.
So I'll take Northwestern to cover.
I will too. Scott Frost, he's lost some of his players. I mean, he's got offensive linemen coming out in interviews and press conferences saying, we don't have everybody that's bought in. Not everybody's guys think that they're bought in. Yeah. But when you come from high school where you worked the hardest on your team and you come into college and you work just as hard, I'm sorry, but you got to work harder than that. And
well, when you're winless,
yeah,
and you've got a
tough.
team full of guys who in high school most of them won state championships.
Yeah,
they're not used to losing.
Yeah,
and you got a young team, fairly young. It's tough. And then you had mentioned last week about maybe Scott Frost had thrown some players under the bus.
Yeah,
that's not good for a coach to do that. I mean,
well, I think it was just calling their mentality into question and. Just maybe saying the same thing as their offensive linemen, just that they're not buying in. You know, it's tough. It's tough to get these guys, especially with 5 losses and no wins. I mean, that just it goes downhill real fast from there.
So you got Northwestern.
Yeah.
Then. Okay. Oklahoma State is a 7-point favorite at Kansas State. Kansas State hung in there with was it Tech? Who did they play last week? They lost by 3, I think. I think it was, or 4. Maybe it was 38-34, 37-34. Why can't I remember if they played? It doesn't matter. It was a close game.
Baylor.
Played Baylor.
34-37.
Yeah, so it was a close game with Baylor. Baylor is turning things around, looking a lot better. I kind of think Baylor at this point looks better than Oklahoma State.
Baylor's got at least 3 guys on the offensive side that will play in the NFL. Yeah. I mean, they've got those 2 wide receivers, Denzel Mims and Jalen Hurd, that are just, I mean, they're big body receivers that can outwork you.
So for this one, as far as this one goes, I'm going to take Kansas State in the points, and I think Kansas State wins the game outright. They're playing at Kansas State. That's a little bit of a tough place to play. And Taylor Cornelius is, I mean, he's okay. I'm not going to say he's bad as a quarterback. He's not bad. Yeah. He's decent, but they rattle him a little bit. And Oklahoma State's defense is horrible. Yeah. They're bad. So I think they're ranked 62nd in the country in total defense. So I'm taking Kansas State to cover, and I'm also going to say that they probably win the game.
I'm going to take what was the line 7. On this 7? I'm going to take Oklahoma State to cover. Okay. Yes, what's it, Manhattan, Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
Little Apple. It's a pretty tough place. It's not the biggest stadium, but those fans come out there and they stay the entire game, and it's pretty tough. But Oklahoma State, I think that they're going to put some things. They haven't lost 2 in a row yet, and I think they can win within a touchdown. I think Mike Gundy, see where my head's at this week. I think Mike Gundy will get a couple things turned around and kind of simplify that offense a little bit. But Cornelius, he's just not very accurate. I mean,
well, I will say
that deep ball's not there anymore.
On Twitter was kind of like roasting him after last week.
Yeah.
He didn't throw an interception. He threw 3 touchdowns. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't put all the blame on him.
Right.
It's easy to put the blame on him because he's the quarterback, he's the new guy, and from the beginning, people questioned whether he'd be good enough. So it's easy to blame him. But that loss last week, I don't think you can put that on him.
And they don't always get the top talent.
Right.
I mean, it's tough to put a team together. I think a lot can be said for the job that Mike Gundy does there in Stillwater because of the talent that they get or lack thereof. Because they're constantly in the 30s.
Yeah, they're never in the top 25 in recruiting.
Right.
Never.
So if anything, they get just inside the top 30 in recruiting. So hats off to him. But I do think I don't think Kansas State's that great. They're not your typical Bill Snyder team. So I've got Oklahoma State to cover in this one.
Okay. Tennessee at Auburn. Auburn's a 17-point favorite. Auburn, I believe, lost to Mississippi State in a very shocking loss.
Yeah.
That's their second loss of the season. For some reason, Auburn's offense just all of a sudden can't do anything.
I know.
And I don't understand what the problem is with them. You would think with Stidham and all them.
5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Going into week 7. 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
I mean, I don't know what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
17 points seems like a lot, but I've said it for the last 2 years. Tennessee is a dumpster fire, and they're going into Auburn. So, this could be the week where you turn things around and maybe put some points on the board. So I'm going to take Auburn to cover. I can't take Tennessee. I just don't.
Well, anyone that's any decent team that has played Tennessee this year has just blown their doors off.
Yep.
So it's easy. I mean, this should be an easy one to take. Auburn.
Yeah.
It just. I mean, I'm looking at it here. West Virginia beat Tennessee 40-14. Florida beat them 47-21. Georgia beat them 38-12. And Auburn somewhere in those three teams, them being the fourth, they're somewhere in the middle right there. So they may even be the second best team in all those teams that I just mentioned. So I think Auburn covers this one.
Okay. Pitt at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 21.5-point favorite. Pitt, they beat Syracuse last week. Is that right? Yeah, they beat Syracuse.
Yep. In overtime.
So Notre Dame's just rolling.
Yeah.
Their offense is unbelievable. I mean, I picked Virginia Tech last week. That was a terrible pick. I took Virginia Tech in the points. Thought Virginia Tech had a chance to upset them.
Yeah.
Wow, I mean, Notre Dame just came out
Book's looking
firing.
so good.
He looks
9 touchdowns, 1 interception.
That guy is going to be one of the people on the Heisman list by the end of the season because he's putting up those kind of numbers.
It just stinks that he's not gotten a whole
season
year under his belt.
That's all right. He will have next year. He'll be a contender next year.
That's true.
So as far as this goes, sure, I'm taking Notre Dame to cover.
He's the kind of guy that kind of gets Brian Kelly off the hot seat.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll take Notre Dame to cover 21.5.
Yeah.
Okay. Baylor at Texas. Texas is a 16.5-point favorite. Texas beat OU. That was a heck of a game. It's just unfortunate that OU, their defense is one of the worst in Power 5. I mean,
100%.
89th ranked total defense in the country, dead last in RedZone defense, and then they finally fire Mike Stoops after all that. Lost to Texas. Honestly, OU's defense made Ellinger look like Tom Brady.
He's better this
it's
year.
Just amazing.
He is better this year, so I'm not gonna take shots at him or anything. But he's not.
He's not an elite.
He's not Tim Tebow,
no,
and he's not even Colin Klein. He's a little bit worse than Colin Klein. I'll say that because Colin Klein was a pretty good quarterback for Kansas State. But he kind of reminds you of that 6'3" linebacker that plays, quarterback and can run a little bit, run a lot actually. He had 70-something yards, and then he can throw good enough. If you give him a cushion, he can make good enough passes that he'll hurt you if you don't come ready to play, and that's what happened.
But what I noticed in that game is what I see in Texas right now is, and of course it shouldn't be a surprise considering Tom Herman, but I see Texas as a Big Ten team playing in the Big 12. And what I mean by that is with Big Ten teams, you have massive, huge, strong offensive linemen, and you play power football, and you just knock people off the line. You control the line of scrimmage, and it's not about speed or getting to the outside. It's not the spread offense, or the air raids. It's like lining up, we're going to smash you in the mouth. And OU's defense did not have anybody that could match up with that strength.
Right.
I mean, OU's got a lot of speed on defense, but they don't have much power or size, and it showed in that game.
Which it's crazy because over the last few years, you could say they've recruited better defensively than they have at least in the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, at least since 2012, 2011, I think Oklahoma has recruited a lot of those guys are really young though.
Yeah.
And I'm not making any excuses. I mean, to be dead last in the country in red zone defense is just, I mean,
they have never stopped anybody. Any team that got in the red zone has scored every time.
Oklahoma used to win games with their defense.
That's
and
right.
it's just crazy to see. And
it'd be interesting to hear Dusty Dvorak, who played for OU back in the mid-2000s. He's an analyst and play-by-play for ESPN now. It'd be interesting to hear his take about
I think he was, because he's on the radio here in Oklahoma, I think he was actually saying that it was time to make a change in defense. Whatever, he wasn't calling for Mike Stoops' job. That was a guy that coached him. But hats off to Texas. I mean, I talked to some Texas fans last night. Ian, I forget his last name. Anyway, if you're a Texas fan and you're on Twitter, you've probably seen him. You know exactly who I'm talking about. But I was just kind of saying I want to see more consistency. I've yet to say that they're back, and that's, again, not to take any shots, not being a homer. I did like a lot of what I saw from Texas. Their defense was good, but their defense also gave up more yards and, I mean, as many points there late in the fourth quarter as OU's defense did. So I'd be a little bit worried about that. You did face Kyler Murray, who's one of the top college football quarterbacks, if not the top. He's definitely in the discussion, but Texas, you just keep doing what you're doing. Don't let this be the high point of your season.
No, you can't have a letdown after this.
You
got to be ready to play next week.
And that's why I think maybe Baylor covers the spread here, because Baylor's actually playing teams pretty tough.
Yep.
And just going off of comparison to Oklahoma, Baylor kept it real close to Oklahoma, and then Oklahoma kept it real close to Texas. So I'm going to take Baylor to cover here because that's a big spread.
I'm taking Baylor in the points as well. I think Texas wins the game, but I think there's no way they cover 16 and a half.
And I know I said a lot just to tell you my pick, but Texas, man, they're getting better. I mean, and I said it last year, year number 2 with Herman, he would get it turned around, and I think you're starting to see that.
Well, you know what? A lot of coaches in their second year win championships, including national championships, because – well, there's a lot of reasons for that. We won't get into all that. But so we made our pick. I'm going to make one more comment about OU's defense because they don't play this week, so we don't have an opportunity to talk about them. I was talking with somebody earlier today about OU's defense, and one of the things I noticed that hasn't really been pointed out yet, if you look at OU's offense throughout the years, the guys on offense are getting developed as players throughout their career. They're getting better every year. On defense, they're not.
Right.
Look at Motley at cornerback.
Some of them get worse.
Yeah,
I mean, they'll bring in 5-star.
Was Jordan Evans the cornerback from, who was the cornerback 2 years ago who was could have went out in the draft, would have been a top 10 pick?
Zach Sanchez, maybe?
I can't remember who it was, but then he stayed, and he just got worse and worse to where his last year, which I think was last year, he lost out to a freshman at his position.
No, that was Jordan Thomas.
Jordan Thomas.
Yeah.
Great example. He just got worse. I mean, and
for 7 games, he had an interception 7 games in a row.
Yeah, and so and that's not just him. On every position on defense, what I see is that players aren't getting better.
Yeah.
And that they're peaking as freshmen or sophomores, and then they're dropping off.
5-star Caleb Kelly.
That is bad coaching.
Yeah.
That's bad coaching.
Linebacker Caleb Kelly from California, he was a 5-star guy. comes in and loses out to a fifth-year senior this year. And then they had plans to redshirt him this year. And I don't know what's going on, because then they brought him back in, and he's kind of gone away from that and said, no, I want to play.
Yeah.
So, and there were rumors that players were talking about leaving and quitting the team at halftime. I don't know how true that is, because there were also rumors that Diaco was going to take over for defensive coordinator, and then Ruffin McNeil, which he had some good defenses at Texas Tech, top 30, and to me, a top 30 defense last year would have won them the national championship.
Last thing I'm going to mention, though, because I found out today from somebody who was on the sideline who saw it firsthand. One of the problems that OU's defense was having against Texas was Mike Stoops is in the box. He calls down to Diaco, or there's some other guy.
Diaco can't be on the sideline.
And from there, they give the signals into the defense.
Yeah.
What was happening a lot of the times was Stoops was calling down a play, and Diaco or this other guy were saying, no, we can't do that, and they were changing it up and calling their own defense and not calling what Mike Stoops was calling in the box.
Man.
I found that out today. So that's a problem, because I heard that there was a lot of yelling and screaming at each other on that sideline during the game.
Well, and at halftime, apparently in the locker room, there was a really heated players, coaches. I mean, it just is not a good look for Oklahoma. I mean, this is the same stuff that Texas dealt with a couple years ago. Guys in the locker room texting and stuff like that. And when you start to lose your players, we're seeing in Nebraska, when you lose your players, it's tough to win games. And I think that Lincoln Riley's the coach to, kind of get this team corralled and everything. They trust in him, and it looks like recruiting. We're not going to – we'll go on. But anyway, I just all that to say, Texas is a good team.
They are a good team.
Let's see some consistency, but Baylor covers here.
Okay.
We just went off.
Way off.
Y'all are going to hate
it. We didn't have an effort. We had no opportunity later on to talk about Oklahoma. So anyway. All right,
we'll make it real short next week for Oklahoma.
Michigan State at Penn State. Penn State, 13.5-point favorite. Michigan State just lost to Northwestern. Penn State, McSorley's just amazing. I think they were off last week.
10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
I think they were off last week after losing to Ohio State, so they had a bye week to get ready. They're going to be ready to play, because I think they're ready to turn things around, and they're still in the top 15. I'm taking Penn State to cover 13.5.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. We'll move on. Texas A&M is a 2-point favorite at South Carolina. Texas A&M just been hanging with everybody. They beat Kentucky. They're a really good football team. It's just when you're in the SEC West, you play a lot of tough teams, and you have to, they're not at an Alabama or an LSU level right now. So I think A&M wins pretty easily. They'll cover the 2 points.
I think so too.
Bentley, I think, for South Carolina, their quarterback, he's out too.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like is they only won by a touchdown against Arkansas. So Kentucky's really that one really good win. Because they hung with Clemson. They did hang with Clemson.
They kind of hung with Alabama.
But that's also when Clemson had their kind of 2 quarterback system, and they weren't focused strictly on Trevor Lawrence.
But they still had that great defense that they had the whole time. So
yeah, and Clemson keeps it close with. We've said that they did that last year. They keep it close with a lot of teams. They don't ever just step on the throat unless it's convenient or unless they can.
So who you got here?
It's how many points? 2-point spread. Yeah, A&M. Yeah, for sure.
UCF 4.5-point favorite at Memphis. UCF has Mackenzie Milton. Probably, he won't win the Heisman because he's in a group of 5, but he should be considered at the top with the way he's been playing. I know the competition is less than, say, what Alabama plays or OU or whatever, but he did it last year. He did it this year. There's been no fall off. He's going to be one of those guys that it will excel in the NFL, in my opinion. So that all being said, 4.5 points, I think that's nothing. I know Memphis is pretty good, but they're not as good as they've been in the last couple of years. I think UCF easily covers 4.5.
Memphis has a quarterback, Brady White, who his numbers are actually better than Mackenzie Milton's.
Okay.
He's thrown for 1,549 yards, 15 touchdowns, 1 interception. Mackenzie Milton's thrown for 1,501 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions.
What are the rushing? Because Mackenzie Milton, he can get almost 100 yards on the ground.
Memphis has got a running back. I don't know this kid, so I'm just seeing him for the first time. Darrell Henderson, who's got 934 yards on the year, halfway through, and 12 touchdowns.
Okay. It doesn't change. I think UCF still covers. I'm just going to stick with them.
Yeah. The defense for UCF, I think, is a little bit better than Memphis. I'll take UCF to cover here.
Georgia 7-point favorite at LSU.
Those numbers just stood out to me. That's just why I bring that up.
Georgia 7-point favorite at LSU. I'm on the LSU bandwagon. I really like them. My boy Joe Burrow. But I said that between Georgia and Alabama, LSU is going to win one of those games, and I really thought, and if they get healthy. Now, okay, let me just say this. I watched Ed Orgeron's press conference today, watched the whole thing. Last week, they had so many offensive linemen out hurt, and they had one guy that they've moved from tackle to guard, and this week they were going to move back to tackle, but he said, you know what, we just need to leave him where he's at. We have everybody coming back. He goes, we're healthy this week. Everybody's going to play. We're not going to have the problems we had last week. That's what he said. I believe him, but I still think matchup-wise, when you look at the matchup, I think LSU, if they're healthy, matches up good against Alabama. They don't match up well against Georgia. Georgia's a 7-point favorite, and I have to take Georgia to cover.
Yeah.
I think LSU is going to struggle with Georgia, but I think when they line up against I know Tua's doing his thing. I get that and everything, but I just think LSU matches up really well, especially on offensive defensive lines. When they're healthy, they match up really good with Alabama, and I think they can beat Alabama. But as far as this week, Georgia's going to win the game.
Yeah, I've got Georgia to cover in this one too. I just think that I think they're really well balanced, and their defense is giving up 13 points a game while scoring 42 points a game. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty big margin. LSU just, I'm sorry, Tigers fans, I don't think they cover here.
They had some issues on offense. So Brissett and that other running back they have, they're really good running the ball. They aren't worth a crap blocking.
Yeah.
And Joe Burrow got lit up on the backside. I mean, just nailed in the back. I don't know how he didn't get carted off the field hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, like that. So
that pick six, man.
They gotta figure out the blocking on the backside. Those running backs need to work on blocking all week. Don't even let them touch with football. Just work on blocking. And the receivers, I said every single receiver on that team needs to get in front of the machine and catch 1,000 passes every day with your hands because they were dropping so many balls. I mean, poor Joe was doing everything he could, and he threw the pick six, but it was just he was struggling to try to get. Nobody was catching the ball. He was getting rushed and hurried. But anyway, so we both have Georgia covering. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Washington.
I think they may have covered every game so far. It looks like. I mean, maybe not, but.
Okay. Washington 3.5 favorite at Oregon. Washington's a really good football team, but I still believe Oregon is the best team in the Pac-10 or Pac-12.
Yeah.
I just believe that 3.5 is not a big spread. I'll take it. I'll take Oregon and the points, and I think Oregon wins it outright.
Yeah. Herbert's going to have quite a few NFL scouts there watching. It's at Oregon. I'm going to take Oregon to cover.
Okay. Miami 6.5 at Virginia. Man, Miami 1-point win over Florida State, could have easily lost that game. I know it's a rivalry, but geez, man, Miami, you're supposed to be a lot better than Florida State. I'm not just not going to break this down or whatever. I'm just going to say that Miami probably squeaks out another win by 3. They're not going to cover 6.5, so I'll take Virginia and the points.
I'm going to take Virginia, or not Virginia. I'm sorry. I'm going to take Miami to cover here because I think they're going to come out with something to prove and say that there could have been any number of things that happened in that Florida State game. You hear years later when players come and do interviews look at Mike Leach dropping a play card in front of the Texas
that was great
coaching staff. So anything could have happened. I do believe in Miami here, and I think that they will cover against Virginia.
Ole Miss is a 6.5-point favorite at Arkansas. Arkansas is not going to lose every game, and they're slowly getting a little bit better, hanging in there in games for a while. And Ole Miss doesn't have much of a defense. I'm taking Arkansas on the points, and I think Arkansas actually wins the game.
I mean, they've won one. They did win their first one, but I think I I've got Ole Miss to cover in this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ole Miss to cover.
Okay. Missouri at Alabama. Alabama's a 28-point favorite last week. They were a 35-point favorite, and they won by 34. So they just don't cover. And even some Alabama fans commented on our page, said, Alabama rolls, but never pick them to cover because they don't cover. Because usually they get up and they pull starters, and they take their foot off the throttle, basically.
Yeah.
So as far as this week goes, Missouri's no slouch.
Yeah.
They got an offense. And Nick Saban's not been very happy with his defense because they've been giving up some points.
And that's the thing. He blew up about his defense.
He did.
Even though they killed Arkansas, I mean, he was pretty mad.
Yeah.
So.
I'm taking Missouri in the points. Alabama wins the game, but Missouri will keep it close. Closer than 28 anyway.
28, yeah. I don't know. With that defense, I think only because I think that Nick Saban will treat this entire week toward his defense. I think that they might give up 7 points.
So you're going to take Alabama
I'll take Alabama to cover just because I think Nick Saban is as good as any coach in the country at getting his team ready to play and to get them back on track.
One of us is going to have a really good week this week, and one of us is going to have a really bad week.
Have we picked that many apart?
We picked quite a few of them apart. Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
I'll probably have the bad week again, and y'all can jump on me for it.
Next game, West Virginia is a 6-point favorite at Iowa State. I struggled with this when I went back and forth because Iowa State can play defense when they want to. They're pretty good at home. OU struggled a little bit with them up there. But at the end of the day, Will Grier, he's one of the top Heisman candidates for a reason. I have to take West Virginia to cover 6.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
I just think that Iowa State has struggled against certain teams, and for some reason, they're not there yet. No. And I think that West Virginia's offense is rolling still.
They're rolling, and unlike previous years, West Virginia's defense is not that bad this year.
Right.
They are 32nd in total defense across the country. And if you have a top 30 defense, you're a championship quality team if you have the offense to go with it. So they're just on the outside of 30. And I think that they're able to slow down Iowa State enough.
It's at Ames, which is usually a pretty tough place to play on like a Thursday or Friday night because it gets crazy. But just a normal Saturday game, I think West Virginia covers here.
Okay. 2 more games here. Wisconsin at Michigan. Michigan's 7-point favorite. This I think is the ABC primetime game. It's going to be a good game. It's a power Big Ten game. These games tend to be low scoring. Mm-hmm. This could be an exception, but normally these are low scoring games. It's a defensive game. It's kind of a toss up because Wisconsin hasn't been playing great. Michigan's been winning, but they haven't been dominating.
Yeah.
So I just predict this is going to be really close. So just because of that, I'm going to take Wisconsin in the points.
Yeah, Michigan just doesn't look to have really that great win. They beat Maryland 42-21. They beat Northwestern 20-17. They beat Nebraska 56. So they're doing the things that they need to do against the lesser teams. Western Michigan they beat 49-3.
Yeah. Western Michigan and Nebraska are the only teams they really put it on.
Yeah, and they lost to Notre Dame.
Yeah. But you can't hold that against them. I mean, Notre Dame as good as they are. Yeah.
Yeah, first game of the season.
Right.
I've got
Shea Patterson is finally coming into his own with this offense. He's getting better, and Michigan's defense is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm going to take because Michigan has the better defense, and their rush defense is holding the opponents to under 100 yards a game.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Taylor's
going to get 100.
I know he's good. Yeah.
But he's not going to get 150 or 200.
Right. So I think they kind of keep him at bay, and I think that they cover this.
They're going to. I think he'll get his 100, and they're going to force Hornibrook to throw the ball.
Yeah.
And he's not very good at throwing the ball.
Yeah.
And so Michigan's defense, I think, is going to create some turnovers. I think Michigan wins the game. I just don't think Michigan covers 7.
Yeah.
I think it could be a 1-point or a field goal game. So that's why I'm going to take Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But you think Michigan will win though, right? Are you taking them to cover?
Yeah, I got them to cover too.
All right, cool. Colorado at USC. This is the last game we're picking. USC is a 7-point favorite at home. But Colorado, they're still undefeated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, still undefeated.
Number 19, I think, in the country.
Yeah, and you know what? I have to go with Colorado. I mean, Colorado in the points, and I think Colorado will probably win the game.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit surprised. 7 points for USC. That was a lot. I mean, I'm not sure what everybody's seeing there. But
I've got, in Football Power Index says that USC's got a 74% chance of winning the game. Man, Colorado's quarterback, Steven Montez, he's pretty good. I mean, 14-20 passing and 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions to JT Daniels, 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, he's throwing for a lot of yards, but he's just not finding the end zone.
Yeah.
And then you've got a receiver for Colorado who's got 708 yards on the season. And that's, on that clip, he's going to go over, 1,200 yards probably for the season. And then they've got decent rushing attack, which USC really doesn't. I mean, they have
like 4 or 5
still
backs.
haven't settled on like a back. And
it's backed by committee.
Yeah. So I think that Colorado definitely covers in this. And I will say, because the last 2 games that USC has played, they won by 3 points and they won by 4 points.
Mm-hmm. So you got Colorado in the points.
And Colorado's pretty good. So and they played at Arizona, which Arizona's not great. And then they beat
Nebraska. They beat Arizona State.
Lost to Texas, lost to Stanford, but they beat Washington State by 3 points. I mean, I just don't see them covering a 7-point spread.
Yeah.
So Colorado on the points.
Colorado on the points. All right. That's
Long
it.
Way to
for
say that.
That's it for week 7. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and subscribe. But thank you for watching and commenting no matter what. So even if you don't subscribe. So
even if you just dump on us.
Yeah, whatever. We don't care.
Yeah. We're still going to make these videos. We're still going to do these picks.
Yep. All right, we're out. We'll see what happens, and then we'll see you again next week for week 8.
See you guys.
Peace out.